Do you ever get stuck trying to compare and contrast legal cases for your classes or exams? Well, what if AI could do some of this heavy lifting for you? Well, that's what we'll be looking at in today's video. I'm going to compare and contrast two important cases here in Australia using NotebookLM. Let's go. Now, before we jump in, I just want to pause for a moment. Just because we're using an AI tool here, I'm not advocating that you'll never need to read your cases in any detail. So please don't take this video as though I'm supporting the notion that you don't need to read your cases anymore. I'm definitely not supporting that at all. So let's just clear the air there. But what I am advocating is that you can use AI to help fast track your initial scoping and understanding of a particular case so that it can actually help develop in your mind a framework or a scaffold of what the case is about, so that when and if you need to do further detailed reading of the case, it means that you have a structure in your mind already that you can then attach all the additional details that you pick up while reading the case. All right, so early on in my legal studies, I found that sometimes I would just start at the beginning of a case and try and read it like a novel, and I soon learned that that was not very effective, just starting and trying to read every word. So I learned through trial and error that there are some tips and tricks on how to be more strategic and wise with your reading when it comes to cases. I do have a separate quick reference guide available on my website. It's just a couple of pages long, and actually I think it's just a one-pager, and it really just gives you a nice framework and some things to think about around how to approach reading the cases that are assigned to you for your semester. So with that out of the way, let's move on now to how we can use NotebookLM. All right, let's jump in now and upload our two cases. So in the home page for NotebookLM, we just simply click on the Create New black button, and then the Add Sources page displays. I just need to upload my two cases in PDF format, so I just click on Choose File, and then I just navigate to my files and select them. And now we just wait for our two files to upload. It shouldn't take too long. Great, so our two files now have been uploaded. So there's my first case and my second case. And straight away, it's automatically given my new notebook a heading up the top here. But you can just click in here and override that. So I'm just going to update that. Comparison of Cook and Imbree. So now when I'm looking at my notebook homepage, I'll be able to see pretty quickly what this particular notebook is about. So the first thing to do once you've uploaded your sources and also just updated the title of this particular notebook is to then have a quick look at the paragraph that NotebookLM has automatically generated for you. And so what this does is as soon as you've uploaded all of your sources, then NotebookLM will go through all of the content in all of your uploaded sources, analyze the information, and automatically generate this very short, high-level summary for you. So this is always a great starting point for you, especially if you're looking at a couple of cases that you know nothing about, you've got no history, and maybe you're studying a new semester and you've just been given a couple of cases that is part of your curriculum. And so you need to start somewhere. Let's now move on and we will learn more about these two resources. So what we're going to do is go down to the bottom of this panel here into the chat section, and I'm just going to add a simple instruction. Create a table that summarizes, compares and contrasts these two cases, and we'll see how that goes. Now we might need to wait a few moments while the AI does its magic and looks at those two documents, and then hopefully we get a nice table with according to our instructions. Oh, and here we go. So let's have a quick look. All right, here is a table summarizing, comparing and contrasting the cases of Cook and Imbree based on the provided sources. All right, so up the top, we've got the court, we've got who the parties are, and as you may know, these grey round circles, that will directly take you to where that information came from in the source document. So you can just hover over that and then drill down if you want to. Sometimes that's a good idea because you might want to check and validate the information. But let's just keep scrolling down. Let's see how it summarised the basic facts. So on the left for Cook, they've said inexperienced and unlicensed driver invited by passenger who knew of her inexperience, lost control, crashed, injuring the passenger. And over in Imbree, unskilled and inexperienced learner driver driving under the supervision of a passenger who was aware of his lack of skill, lost control and caused injury to passenger. That's pretty good. And we can also see here that the facts for these two cases are very similar. So that's interesting to see. Let's go down and we can see it's automatically summarised here for us the main legal issues. So let's have a quick look at that. For Cook on the left, whether the duty of care owed by an inexperienced unlicensed driver to a passenger who knows of their inexperience should be the standard of an experienced driver or an adjusted standard. And then over on the right, whether there's a special relationship between an unskilled driver and a supervising passenger aware of the lack of skill imports a different standard of care than an inexperienced driver, or whether the standard is objective. That's not a bad summary in terms of providing a high-level view of what the main legal issue is. But let's just keep going down the table. So decision of standard of care. Just to explain, so with Cook, essentially it was held that the standard of care of an inexperienced driver, that it could be adjusted to be lower than the standard of care that would be expected of an experienced driver. So Cook had set that precedent, and then along came Imbree and it discussed that standard of care and how it allowed for that adjustment of the standard of care to be lower in Cook. And in Imbree, it actually decided no, and we're overruling that. And in Imbree, the court decided that it should be the same standard of care owed to the passenger driver, irrespective of whether you're an inexperienced driver, and it should be the same standard as an experienced driver. So that's just a quick background in terms of these two cases. So I'm just checking to see if that information is coming through in this summary table here. A decision on standard of care. So in Cook, held that in exceptional circumstances where a special relationship exists, such as the driver known by the passenger to be unqualified and inexperienced, the standard of care, so here it is here, adjusted. So in Cook, they said, hey, this is a special relationship. I think we have some liberty here to adjust and lower the standard of care that's owed. So that was the approach in Cook. And then over here in Imbree, it says here, held that Cook should no longer be followed in this respect. The standard of care owed by a driver, including a learner, to a passenger is the same objective standard as owed to any other road user. So that's very good to see in this table. So that's what I was looking for in the table. So that's good. Let me just scroll down, and then it goes into further detail, the reasoning by the court on the left for Cook, and then the reasoning on the right here for Imbree. So that's good to see. And let's scroll down, treatment of precedent, and over here we can see the table says yes, overruled Cook. So that's good. And let's just keep seeing what else is in the table here. The standard defined. So again, it's talking about what that standard is, and then relevance of passengers' knowledge and supervision. So that's interesting. And then the outcome. So, hey, I think this is a really good start. If you've only got 5 or 10 minutes and you're rushing to attend a class or a tutorial, or you're under the pump trying to get an assessment paper done, and you need to have a really quick introduction and overview of a couple of cases, this is a really good start. But as per usual, please don't rely on all of the AI generated information. You do need to go back and check the details. Now, I'm going to try putting in another prompt, or what I might do is have a look and see some of these auto-generated questions down the bottom here. So sometimes when you do this, you might look at the table and go, I really need to keep drilling down, or maybe clarifying something. So you can use the chat down the bottom here to continue drilling down and asking more clarifying questions and prompts as you need to. All right. So you can either enter any question that you may have, or you could use some of these questions down the bottom here. So I'm just going to have a look and scroll over and see what the other questions are here. I think I might ask one more question, something like, how does Imbree impact the evolution of standard of care in negligence tort law? All right, so that took about a minute to generate. Based on the provided sources and our conversation, Imbree significantly impacted the evolution of the standard of care in negligence tort law, particularly concerning drivers and their passengers. So this looks quite good too. And so that's an example of how you can use the chat function down the bottom, or possibly some of the questions, to continue the conversation. All right, and just asking further clarifying questions. But let's just scan our eyes over this to see if it's helpful at all. I quite like this because here it is talking in more detail about, what does it mean by exceptional circumstances, and, the special relationship, what does that mean? So that's good to see. Talks here about shift away from proximity as a determinant of standard of care. So yes, in those two cases, there's a discussion around proximity. So that could be an avenue that you want to drill down further into, and so on. In essence, Imbree significantly simplified the law regarding driver standard of care by rejecting the variable standard established in Cook for special relationships. It firmly entrenched a single objective standard for all drivers, regardless of experience, towards all road users, including supervising passengers, influenced partly by the practical reality of compulsory third-party insurance and a rejection of proximity as a determinant of the standard. So there you go. I think this is going to be quite helpful to you in your legal studies. Another tip that I'd like to share, and that is, if you're uploading any of your legal cases, and let's say it's a criminal law subject that you're doing, and you're uploading a couple of cases that may discuss some violent acts in it, don't be surprised if you find that in NotebookLM, it will just simply not work. And I know that for a fact because that's what I tried to do in preparation for doing this video. I had selected 2 criminal law cases, I uploaded them, and they were uploaded successfully. But what I found was that it just literally refused to provide any summary information. So I did a bit of research to find out why it wasn't working, and sure enough, I found out that yes, there's obviously some flags that are set up so that if and when NotebookLM identifies any of that information that has been preset as contentious and difficult material, then it will not work. Now, another very important tip, if you want to save any of the information that has been generated in this middle chat panel, then you will need to click on a Save to Note button. So as you may remember, what we did, we had 2 prompts. First of all, I asked it to create a table, and so that's what it did here. So just below this table, if I want to save that, then I need to just come down to the bottom here and click on Save to Note. So again, I'll need to click on Save to Note for that as well. And then what happens is, so now you can see my saved notes. So here's the table and the other information. and now that is saved, ready for me to access next time I come into NotebookLM. And to do that, you would just simply come over here and just click to open it up or close it down. And let's just have a look at our table, make sure it's all saved. Yes, there it is. It's all saved. All right, so that's a really important tip, because if you don't click Save to Note, next time you come into NotebookLM, that information will not be there in that chat panel. So that concludes today's tutorial around how to compare and contrast two cases really fast using AI. I hope you picked up a few tips and that this will help you along your journey at law school. Before I finish up, I do want to remind you that, as like any AI tool, with any information that they generate, you always need to check the details, because they often can hallucinate. Even though using NotebookLM, the risk of hallucination, one could argue, is lower because it's only looking at the sources that you've uploaded. However, it can still hallucinate. All right, so please remember that, and I will see you next time.